Okay, or do I need to move this closer or leave it? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us today. We're here to address an often overlooked but deeply important issue, the role of caregivers in our communities. Whether we realize it or not, many of us will one day become caregivers or find ourselves relying on the care of others. This is a responsibility that requires an extraordinary amount of compassion, patience, and sacrifice. Today, we gather to recognize the incredible contributions of caregivers, especially those who work informally and without pay, dedicating themselves to the well-being of loved ones. So I'll talk about what I call a tale of two aunts. They represent two different generations of caregivers. One aunt cared for my grandmother until she died at 101. It had a great emotional strain, a financial strain. I watched my aunt, it really impacted her health, even her physical health. And there just were no resources available. Then I have another aunt who's a little closer to my age. And she had a son that was born with cerebral palsy. Then her other son was in a very horrific automobile accident. So both of her sons have mobility issues. And someone who is in her early 50s, she'll be a caregiver until the day she dies. So these are just two examples of two different generations who are affected by, and they welcome being a caregiver. They want to take care of their loved ones, but we must present resources, access to various resources to help them do this. As we recognize caregivers as key partners in the provision of health care, we got to recognize the toll that it takes. And I talked about it physically, emotionally, and financially. Many caregivers juggle full-time jobs while caring for their loved ones, often neglecting their own health and well-being. Caregivers are the silent strength behind our healthcare system, providing essential care to those in need, yet their work often goes unrecognized and unsupported. It's time we step forward to address this issue. By expanding access to services and programs that ease their burden, we not only honor their sacrifices, but we also improve the quality of care for the most vulnerable among us. Supporting caregivers means supporting the fabric in our communities. And I mentioned with the tale of two aunts, how the caregiving landscape is changing. And with the aging population and increasing number of adults with developmental disabilities requiring care, this issue is only becoming more urgent. We project the number of adults with disabilities requiring care will double by 2030. As the need for caregiving rises, so too must our commitment to ensuring that caregivers are equipped with the tools, support, and services they need to thrive. This is not just a matter of health, it's a matter of dignity and humanity. No one should have to choose between caring for a loved one and their own financial stability or mental and physical well-being. So, this resolution is more than a recognition of the important role caregivers play. It's a commitment to action. We as members of the Cook County Board of Commissioners pledge to promote and expand access to the programs and services that caregivers so desperately need. We will work to increase awareness about the sacrifices caregivers make, and we will push for policy changes that provide financial, emotional, and practical support that caregivers deserve. Together, we can ensure that those who care for others are cared for in return. Thank you. And next, I will like to introduce our fearless leader, President Tony Preckwinkle.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I want to thank you, Commissioner Gordon, for that kind introduction. We're all grateful that you raised this important issue today. And thank you for being a champion for caregivers throughout Cook County. I would like to start by recognizing the commissioners who have joined us. Chairman of Finance, John Daly. Vice Chair of Finance, Bill Lowry. Commissioner Tara Stamps, Commissioner Alma Anaya, Commissioner Michael Scott Jr., Commissioner Aguilar, Commissioner Trevor. Thank you all for joining us and being with us. And I also like Diane Slezak, CEO of AgeOptions. Thank you for joining us and for being here and for your support. Caregivers are the heart of our communities. They're the heart, soul, and in many ways, quiet angels within our neighborhoods. Friends, family members, and neighbors who step up in the time of someone else's need. It takes a special individual with a gift of love, patience, and sacrifice to do what they do. day in, day out, night in and night out. Their support is essential for millions of people, providing help with daily activities, medical tasks, and necessary comfort in times of need. Across our country, there are 53 million caregivers, people who give so much of themselves to ensure others can live with dignity and support. They come from all walks of life, every generation, and reflect the diversity of our county. We see the demands on caregivers rising, especially in African American, Hispanic, and Latinx communities, where caregiving responsibilities have grown substantially. The reality is that caregiving is both a labor of love and a significant challenge. Many caregivers face stress, financial strain, and even a decline in their own health due to the weight of their responsibilities. This is why it's essential that we recognize their contributions and support them in meaningful ways. That's what we're doing here today. As a county, we're committed to providing the resources, policies, and programs that caregivers need. Today, we affirm that caregivers are not just supporters of the healthcare system, they're central partners in it. My commitment to you is that we'll continue to working to expand services, raise awareness, and ensure that caregivers have the support that they need to support others. Thank you. And now I'd like to bring to the podium Chair John Daly.
Thank you, Madam President. I join you this morning, and Diane, I want to acknowledge you, the head of the AgeOptions. Thank you for your hard work. To the President and my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Gordon, thank you for bringing these resolutions, which means it has such an impact on everyone's life. I saw it firsthand with my mother at the age of 90, taking care of my sister, Ellie, who was 57, dying of a brain tumor. And my wife's and her brothers and sisters, I should say, also taking care of their parents when they both developed dementia. As the President stated, there's 53 million people in the U.S. who are caregivers. 3 in 5 caregivers are women, and this is a growing population. It is a stress on everyone, individually, financially, as well as emotionally. But I want to salute Vice President Harris, who has proposed expanding Medicare to cover in-home care for seniors, which would help with this growing population. I salute her, and hopefully this is accomplished when she's elected president. It's my honor now to introduce the Vice Chair, Bill Lowry.
Thank you, Chairman. I am Bill Lowry, Cook County Commissioner of the 3rd District. I am honored to stand with the sponsor of this resolution, my dear friend, Commissioner Monica Gordon. As today we discuss the resolution, we recognize a group of individuals who play a vital yet often overlooked role in our healthcare system and in the lives of so many. Those individuals are our caregivers. Caregivers are the unsung heroes of our county. Whether they're caring for a loved one in the home, assisting a neighbor, or working within the healthcare system, their contributions are essential. They are the ones who step in when we need it. They're the ones that step in when we need it most, offering their time, their energy, and their compassion to help someone maintain their dignity and their quality of life. We often take simple tasks for granted, whether it's getting dressed or eating a meal or bathing oneself or even just walking from one place to another. These are everyday activities that many of us take for granted. But for countless individuals, these tasks are only possible with the assistance of a caregiver. A caregiver can mean the difference between isolation or engagement, the difference between struggle or comfort, and the difference between life and death. This resolution is more than just a formal recognition. It is a declaration that caregivers are key partners in the provision of health care. It is a declaration that caregivers are an integral part of the support system that sustains so many lives. And it's a declaration that caregivers are human lifelines for those who rely on them each and every day. With our aging population, the demand for caregivers will only grow. We must embrace this truth as commissioners and as Cook County, not just in words, but in our actions. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to bring up my colleague and friend, Commissioner Alma Anaya.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Alma Anaya. I'm Cook County Commissioner of the 7th District, the southwest side of the city of Chicago, representing biggest concentration of Latinos and immigrants in the county. You know, I think what's important here today is we all have very deep-rooted stories on why we are here. Not only do we have, of course, a friendship with each other and want to support Commissioner Gordon in this resolution, but the reality is that we all have personal stories to share regarding caregiving. I think back to the strongest person in my life, which is my mother, and the sacrifices that she had to take, taking care of two of my siblings who had different disabilities. The jobs she had to give up to take care of them. The time she had to take away from herself to be there. The time she's had to travel out of state for care for someone or to take care of someone. And it brings me this realization that although we saw it normalized a lot of the times, that it's a burden mentally, financially, and physically. And I learned that the hard way, and I had to channel her so much about 2 years ago when my father became ill and completely unable to take care of himself, and I had to take him in. For about 1.5 years, I was a full-time caregiver at my age, which a lot of the times you don't think, that you have to do that. And the strain that it causes, you don't realize it in the process because you're doing it with so much love and care, and you are sacrificing graciously in many ways. Having a balance, your job, you're trying to have personal life, but also always having your head and your mind in caregiving. And I think the reality of it is, it taught me so many lessons regarding what we need to do to help our caregivers. Again, because you don't notice it through the process, it takes a toll on you. And after a while, you yourself start manifesting, potential illnesses. It affects you mentally as well, and different strains. So I think the reality here is that although our caregivers give so much of themselves and are able to provide and sacrifice so much, that sometimes we also need to recognize that and be able to provide a support system for them. And it's beautiful that we're seeing it here in Cook County and that we're trying to do something about it. But I know that this resolution goes beyond that, to seeing what can happen on a national level, what can happen, even here on a state level, for being able to provide those resources and the much needed support for our caregivers, that yes, they are the lifeline. And let's face it, without caregivers, there is no full recovery. And without caregivers, there's no stability in that person's life. So I'm proud to stand here in support of this resolution and commit myself to also being able to advocate for further resources and funding for our wonderful caregivers. Hola, buenos días. Me llamo Alma Naya. Soy comisionada del 7º Distrito del Condado de Cook. Represento a comunidades latinas e inmigrantes. Y hoy estamos aquí hablando sobre una resolución que es muy importante y muy personal para cada uno de nosotros aquí, de los comisionados. Muchos de nosotros que hemos tenido historias, ¿verdad? O experiencias personales sobre ser cuidador, o ver a alguien en nuestra familia que está encargado del bienestar de otro familiar o de un vecino o de alguien, un amigo familiar. Y es muy importante de reconocer los sacrificios que se hacen sobre estas personas que con mucho amor hacen el cuidado y sacrifican su vida personal, su trabajo quizás, y muchas cosas para el bienestar y la recuperación de alguien. Y esto lo vi muy presente en mi mamá cuando ella tuvo que cuidar a familiares. Y fue algo muy personal y me impactó a mí cuando yo tuve que cuidar a mi padre que desafortunadamente hace 2 años tuvo un accidente y no pudo cuidarse él solo, entonces él tuvo que venir a vivir conmigo y yo tuve que cuidarlo. Entonces, estas personas que igual con tanto amor y tanta dedicación hacen esto, se les debe de dar de reconocer eso, ese sacrificio, pero también ayudar con diferentes recursos y diferentes fondos, y eso es lo que estamos haciendo aquí en el condado de Cook, y esperamos hacerlo a nivel estatal y a nivel federal también. So I would like to now introduce Commissioner Tara Stamps.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps, representing the 1st District. Thank you, Commissioner Gordon, for bringing this important resolution to the forefront. I stand before you this morning to shine a light on the incredible individuals who often go unnoticed, the caregivers. These compassionate heroes are the backbone of our families and communities, providing essential support to those who need it most. Caregiving is a demanding role, filled with both challenges and triumphs. I have personal, hands-on knowledge and experience in this role as a caregiver. Nearly 4 years ago, my Uncle Richard, my mother's last surviving sibling, wife passed away. They did not have any children, and he was having declining health. Because he was a very proud man, we I did not know, neither my sisters knew, how just bad off he was until he came to live with me. And in 1 year, he had 2 amputations, which required me to take off work. It required me to become an instant hands-on caregiver. It required me to look into all the different systems of support and try to make appointments and try to get people there when I couldn't be there. And I liken it to being like a single mom all over again, because there's not one thing that I can do in my life where to this day, as he's sitting at home right now, I'm not thinking about who's going to be there to take care of Uncle Richard. Did the other caregiver, I got to pass the baton off to somebody else, often who are not family members, right? I find that when this happens, it's usually one person in the family who really stands up and takes the helm and try to make sure that the proper care is given. And of course, I love my Uncle Richard with all of my heart, but I also know that it's what my mother would want. She would want to know that her brother was being looked after, but it takes a toll on everything you do, from your finances to your own personal life, to the responsibilities that you have to other family members. I'm a mother of 3, I have a grandmother of 2, and so whenever I need to go to a football game or go to another event, I have to make sure who's going to be at home with Uncle Richard. Making sure that they have his wheelchair and his medical bed and his medicines, everything, every small detail is so critical, and just hugging him at the end of the night and talking to him about my day, because many of our elders are the highest population next to African-American males between 12 and 24 of suicide. And a lot of that is just due to isolation and loneliness. So not only are you caring for their physical, mental well-being, you're also caring for them to just extend love and just have and respecting their humanity, making them be a part of everyday life, which really could just slip away from them. I remember once a very dear friend of mine, who is now an ancestor, said to me, you know, there are days that I can be in my house and I'm the only voice that I ever hear. And I never think about that, because right now your life is so full, and you know, at the end of the day, you're tired of talking. At least I am at the end of the day. I'm like, I'm tired of talking. But for our many of the people that we're caring for, we are their lifeline. We are their connection to the rest of the world. And so it's done with love, but we have to provide support. So whether caring for an aging parent, a spouse, a child with a chronic illness, a child with special needs, or in my case, an aging relative who is also a veteran, who gave so much of his life to young people, caregivers give their all, often at the expense of their own well-being. My fellow caregivers deserve our recognition and our gratitude and our unwavering support. And so as an elected official, I am committed to advocating for policies that empower caregivers. This includes access to affordable health care, respite care services, and financial support. Say that again. You're amazed at what happened to your electric bill and your light bill when somebody's sitting at home all day. And for those who sacrifice so much for their loved ones, we must also ensure that caregivers have access to resources and training, helping them navigate the complex landscape of caregiving with confidence. I also want to say we also have to make sure that we are properly paying people who are caregivers, who are in those agencies providing that kind of support. Many of them are living on barely livable wages, and so we have to look at the monies that we are putting in the caregiving industry. So let us come together to honor these remarkable individuals. By supporting our caregivers, we strengthen the very fabric of our society. Together, we can create a community where everyone, especially those who give so selflessly, receives the care and support that they give others and the care and support that they deserve. And now I would like to bring to the podium, I think that's it, remarks from nope, I knew there was other people. You're not on the paper, though. No, I'm sorry. Commissioner Michael Scott.
You got it?
Not really.
I got you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Commissioner Michael Scott, Jr., Commissioner of the 2nd District, and I want to thank my colleague for bringing this to the forefront. Everybody talks about their personal stories. Yeah, I have my own. When I returned home from college, my grandmother was starting to ail in health. And my aunts, they stepped up to the forefront and tried to make sure that she had everything that she needs. But as we all talked about, it becomes a financial, emotional, and just a taxing burden on the entire family. And so we went to professional care and brought in a woman that I can honestly say really kept our family together. Can't remember her last name, but Alice, because I called her Aunt Alice because she became a part of our family. And she took care of my grandmother. And not only did she take care of my grandmother, she became my grandmother's best friend. She is the person, as Commissioner Stamps talked about, the person that she downloaded her information to, the person that got her outside and let her enjoy the last years of her life. And Alice took care of my grandmother as if that was her mother into her dying days. And Alice did such a great job that when my aunt became ill, we called Alice and we brought her back in. And because of the relationship that we had amassed with Aunt Alice, again, she took care of my father's sister like it was her sister, made sure she had everything that she needed, and she also became my aunt's best friend into her dying days. And Alice remained a part of our family. We wanted to make sure that as Alice aged, because she had been through 2 generations in my family, by that time she had aged in as well, and she needed care. And we wanted to make sure that her family had everything that she needed to make sure that Alice enjoyed the last parts of her life. And that's what this resolution does. It signifies that those who have taken care of so many for so long have the care as well, whether that is emotional, whether that's financial, whether that is just being there for them. And so I honor my county board members, but especially Commissioner Gordon for bringing this to the forefront. There's so many people who do not see, who do not hear, and do not understand what these caregivers go through. And so I'd just like to thank you. Thank you. I'm new at this, I'm sorry. I will eventually. And so I would like to, Commissioner Aguilar.
Thank you, Commissioner and Madam President, and thank you to my colleague, Commissioner Gordon. We're very lucky if we reach an old age. Many people don't have that privilege. And also, we have a responsibility to take care of our most vulnerable disabilities and elderly. I had the privilege to take care of my folks when they had their golden years. And I was there until their final sigh. And, you know, there's institutions, there's nursing homes, and there's facilities that can take care of the elderly and the disabled. But what is it more better of someone, a loved one, a son or daughter, that they could take care of their grandparents or their parents? Because that additional emotional support makes a huge difference for their well-being. And when the time comes, when their final moments are coming, like Madam President says, is they go in peace and they go with dignity. And that's what life's about. So why not support caretakers? They're willing to spend time and really care for their loved ones, and making sure that their rest of their life is going to be lived with dignity and love and emotional support. I'm Frank Aguilar, soy Frank Aguilar del Distrito 16, que son los suburbios del West. Nosotros, si llegamos a una edad muy a las edades de la tercera edad, seremos muy privilegiados, porque mucha gente no llega a esas edades. Yo cuidé a mis papás los últimos días de sus vida cuando estaban grandes, y es momentos muy especiales para una persona que quiere cuidar a sus papás o a sus seres queridos. Hay instituciones para cuidar a la gente de la tercera edad y para cuidar gente con disabilidades, pero qué mejor es tener a una persona que te quiere, que te cuide, porque ese apoyo emocional es muy importante para su salud emocional. Y yo creo que, ¿por qué no apoyar financieramente con apoyo a la gente que quiere cuidar a sus seres queridos hasta sus últimos momentos? Tenemos una responsabilidad como nosotros, como gobierno, de apoyar a la gente que está dispuesta a cuidar sus familias y no poner la responsabilidad a la sociedad. Thank you. And I guess I'm not used to it. I've been here a few years. My colleague is Maggie Trevor, Commissioner Maggie Trevor.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank Commissioner Gordon for presenting this resolution, President Preckwinkle and all of my colleagues, as well as Diane from AgeOptions, who I know very well. I want you to bear with one more personal story. My family was confronted with this in 2011. My mother, who spent her life connecting people to social services. That was her life. She did much of it as a volunteer. She did it as a career. But in 2011, after a lifetime of suffering health and mobility issues, it became critical when she broke her leg, and at that point needed 24/7 around-the-clock care. And our family was faced with the choice of having her spend her final years in a facility, assisted living facility, or helping her live at home. We chose to help her live at home. That was what she wanted to do. That's where she would be able to enjoy the last years of her life. But it was a struggle. My mother raised 4 children to adulthood, so there were plenty of us to help. But even with 4 kids and a slew of cousins in the area, we still needed to hire 24/7 around-the-clock care for her at home. It cost, at that time, $5,700 a month. It was an enormous sum of money, and it burnt through her resources and our resources. We were lucky, though, in that our family had means, our family had a choice. We were able to do this without any of us 4 kids having to quit our jobs and move back in to take care of her. Not all families do, and this is where giving caregivers the recognition, the due, and the resources is so important, because of not only are they making a sacrifice to help their loved ones, they're making a tremendous personal and financial sacrifice. We need to have a system where we provide people with resources, that we have Medicare cover, long-term in-home care. These are all necessary things. And again, I want to thank my colleagues, my colleague Commissioner Gordon, for bringing this to the fore today. And I would like to introduce AgeOptions CEO Diane Slezak. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I am so moved. I am the CEO for AgeOptions. We're the area agency on aging For suburban Cook County, I work closely with the City of Chicago Department on Aging, and I am so moved by this resolution. Thank you, President Preckwinkle. Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much. We're so grateful for the recognition, and I am so impressed by all of your comments. Many people do not realize the resources that are available for caregivers because they don't recognize themselves. That term doesn't resonate often with people. But we do have a number of resources that are available. About 15 years ago, we received funding under the Older Americans Act, only $6 million for the whole state of Illinois, which when you think about the number of caregivers is not enough to do all of the things that you all have recognized that need to be done. So programs for helping with stress, programs for respite care, programs for counseling, programs for resources to build ramps, install grab bars so that somebody doesn't fall in the shower or in the bathroom. So across suburban Cook County, we have created 9 caregiver resource centers, CRCs, and I have brought some handouts with. So one of the main things we want to do is spread the word about the services that we do have available, and also spread the word about the fact that caregivers need services themselves. We have some services for older adults, not enough either, and not enough support for in-home care. The way our government system across the nation has been built is a tendency towards placing people in skilled care facilities, and many families, as you all have so rightly recognized, do not do that. They want to keep people at home as long as possible. So in suburban Cook County, we have a whole range, as the City of Chicago does, of services, and I really encourage you to take a look. A couple special things that we have done is we have created a program particularly for African American Black caregivers as well as Latinx caregivers, because they have especially told us we don't really need those traditional caregiver services. We rely on our congregations. So about 10 years ago, we went to the congregations in south and west suburbs and asked them, what can we help you with? What do you do for caregivers? And they did absolutely do some things in terms of helping with meal trains or support prayer groups, but we were able to pair our more concrete services of respite care and other services. So we partnered with congregations in those 2 areas to develop programs that join the assets of the congregations in the west suburbs and the south suburbs. So many congregations have these fantastic assets, and we group them together and develop leadership councils among the congregations to help support them, and then infuse the supports that we have available through our AgeOptions programs. One last thing I want to mention is that we have been leaders in developing the Illinois Family Caregiver Coalition. In 2021, the coalition was developed. We're now at about 300 members, and I would invite all of the commissioners to join us. We have monthly meetings and bi-monthly seminars on what we're trying to do in Illinois to help support all caregivers. So thank you. I just can't thank you enough. This is so meaningful. I just really appreciate being here in this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions in the room?
Good morning.
Wondering, of course, a lot of families needs help from training to financial support. How the county will support, especially county-wise talking, and where are those funds coming from?
So, President, in terms of our budget, should we?
We try to support community-based organizations that provide services to the communities and neighborhoods in which they're located. But I'd like to ask Diane to come back and talk about, how you work with communities around this issue.
Well, so I would love for you to grab a copy of the resources that we have. I've also brought a data sheet from AARP on the caregiver resources and one on the Illinois Family Caregiver Coalition. So in suburban Cook County, we have 10 caregiver resource centers, and some of them, like Pathlights, are supported through other funding from the county, through the shared housing program and other programs. But right now, we are, we really encourage everyone to go to these 9 caregiver resource centers that are located throughout suburban Cook County. The City of Chicago has I think 4 caregiver resource centers as well in the city itself. And so the phone numbers to call are right in this resource. And so that's the main way. I know you support other organizations besides Pathlights with some other funding through CDBG, et cetera.
Nick, if you would get back to the reporter with the specifics of the organizations that we support, you'll have to check with economic development, okay?
Additional?
So there's 53 million people that we know that take care of their family members, but do we have local numbers so we know how many people will see any benefits here locally in Cook County?
Well,
We can provide figures for each of our, if you're interested in give me your card, we can provide figures. We do,
Introduce yourself again.
Diane Slazak with AgeOptions. So we can definitely provide figures on how many people we provide in each of the local communities, and I'm sure that my colleague Margaret Leverrier from the city could also do the same. We know that our system is stressed because $6 million from the federal government, particularly though our funding is aimed at the caregiver through this federal funding. And so we're really trying to pinpoint that, and we use an assessment tool called Tailored Care, which really looks at the pinpoint needs of what does each caregiver need. And economically, it really makes sense to keep caregivers in place, to keep family members at home, because it's more expensive to place them in nursing homes and then pay Medicaid funding. So I really appreciate your questions. We can provide some data. We know that we could use more funding, especially for more respite care services. And doing home renovations, that's one of the highest needs, where things get expensive when you need to build a ramp that is pretty costly. So thank you for your questions.
yes, I just want to clear up that the 53 million are unpaid.